close your. Okay.
All right, well, welcome everybody. I'd like to introduce you to Richard Dyter. Richard is based in Newcastle in England, and he's pioneering facilitated writing as a means for people to develop what's in their conscious and unconscious minds and turn it into words. Yes, my name is David Bishop. I'm part of the EME team for the IAF, and we have Raina and Celeste here. Raina is our queen of social media, our goddess of Facebook and Instagram. And Celeste, for those of you who don't know, is our regional director for Europe and Middle East. So thank you all for coming. I think most of you I've checked, you have your scissors, you have your paper, you have your pen. We have Richard, and we can go ahead. Thank you, Richard, over to you.
Thank you very much. So today, the plan is for me to introduce you to facilitated writing. And I know a lot of you are very experienced facilitators, and probably you've done some writing. And it was like, well, actually, why not bring those two together? Because facilitation is like a great way of doing things. And I've been a writer for 25 years or so. And there is a lot of being on your own. And sometimes I sort of lose a bit of oomph, even though I'm paid to write. So it seemed to me it's actually a really good idea if we could have facilitation and writing and sort of get them together, and then sort of by co-laboring it would be possible to get over some of those blocks. And as a writer, I often hear people say, oh, you know, it's difficult for me to write, or I only wish I could write, but, well, maybe facilitation is a way to get round those buts. So today I'm going to introduce you to a tool. And David is kindly agreed to be like the model. And David is a model, isn't he? So yeah, David is going to model it for us, and the rest of us are sort of going to follow on a little bit behind. So you will be writing something, and it will be the content will partly be based on what David says, but also I want you to bring in your own sort of thought, your own content, and at the end you should have some output which you can look at, which you can read, which you will have written. So if you could get your sheet of paper, and the first thing to do is to fold the sheet of paper along the short edge like that. So you should have it looking like this, and then fold it in half again from along the long edge. So it should look like that. Okay, and then fold it in half again along the long edge, like that. Okay, and then when you open up your sheet of paper, you should have 8 boxes. And we're going to use these 8 boxes in various ways. So what I think we will do is we're going to start thinking about a question, and then we're going to start putting some information onto one side of it, just one side at the moment, and use the boxes as like a sort of boundaries for some of our ideas. So I'm not going to do any more telling you how to make the paper at the moment, because I know some people are just arriving. David,
yes, that was my question. We've had 3 or 4 people arrive just as we were doing the instructions, so that everybody's on board. I just want to check, is everybody okay? So nobody's lost. We had about 3 or 4 people who arrived in. Maybe if you can we run down it quickly again, just for those 3 or 4 people who have...
Yes, indeed. So take your piece of paper, an ordinary sheet of paper, like that, then fold it in half. Fold it in half again, so that you end up with 8 boxes. Okay, now one of the ways that I'm finding this to be useful is in getting people to concentrate and actually to get some of their ideas down. And I thought a particular issue that might be relevant to you as facilitators, as a facilitator, is like, well, what happens when you're organizing an online meeting, and maybe there's quite a few people coming, and you want to give them some pre-work, you want to get people sort of engaged in it, you want to frame it a little bit, you're hoping they will do something. So the question that that I've been asking, and I'm going to put it in the chat, is like experience of giving pre-work as a facilitator of online meetings and what problems that could have. So David, I'm going to ask you first of all, what, you know, have you had some problems with giving pre-work as a facilitator of online meetings?
Well, I have, and it tends to be the same thing all the time, that people just don't do it. They don't read the text. They don't bring the things I ask them to bring. So yeah, that's my main problem. It's always
Okay.
they don't have time.
They don't have time. Okay, so what I'm going to do then, I'm just writing on here. Can't see on one side of the sheet of paper in this second one along, I've written pre-work problems. That's what I've written. And if you could write on one side of your feet, pre-work problems. Okay, we're talking about pre-work before meetings that is given by a facilitator. And from pre-work problems, okay, so one problem is that people don't do it. So let me just write that down there. People don't do it. Okay, so I have written there in large. You don't have to write it large because this is just so that you can see. But I'd like put one problem in one box. Now, what you could do is you could start adding more problems into other boxes or other bits of your experience. You know, what else do you know about giving pre-work as a facilitator of online meetings? Okay, so David, have you got another thing, maybe another sort of problem or another bit of experience?
Yes, they don't open their mails. So I have written down. They don't open the attachments or.
So it's not just that they don't do it; they don't even see it, or they don't.
Yes, they don't even see it, or it gets stuck in their undesirable mails or their spam or something like that.
Okay, so don't read. Okay, so I'm writing that on my bit of paper, and it seems to me that they don't read it is actually something that comes before people don't do it. If you see what I mean, like there's a bit of a sequence. So because it's quite helpful to add the arrows in between the different items. Okay, so the first task I have for you is to add some more information around this pre-work problems, putting it on different boxes. And I'm going to suggest that we go into breakout rooms and you're going to get just a few minutes and maybe you could discuss it. You could add in some bits of information. And if you haven't got your bit of paper yet, and I know there were some latecomers, then don't accept to go into a breakout room or come back here if you're put in automatically. And then we will take you through to make sure everybody's in the same place with that. Okay, does that seem okay? And we have the question, which I'll put in chat again. So Rena, if you're okay to put us into breakout rooms, please.
Okay, I have sent an invitation to all now.
Okay, so that'll be 4 minutes. Okay, so, and I say anyone who stays who needs to have help doing the folding.
Yes.
We needed more time.
Okay, great. Is everybody back? And let me just have a look on my. Yes, they must. Everyone is back, I think. Is that right? Okay, so now that we are all back, the next step is to turn your bit of paper over. And now you should have a clear piece of paper with 8 boxes. And along the top of the bit of paper, can you write in quite, you can write it in quite small. I've done it large so everyone can see, but along the top, it's 8, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, from left to right. Okay, and when you have done that, just checking, making sure everyone's got that along the top, 8, 1, 2, 3, then turn it through 180 degrees. And then write 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's important that it's this way round. Okay, so little 4 has got to be at the top here. So when you write, it's going to be actually the other way around compared to 3. 4 will be different to 3, for example. Okay, right, that's great. Now, in box 1, near the bottom, can everybody write, just near the bottom, quite small, problems with pre-work?
Which
And
bottom?
Bottom of number 1.
On box number 1, at the, near the bottom of box number 1. And also near the bottom of box number 1, can you write today's date, which is the 3rd of June? Okay, and when you've done that, that is the start of loading information onto this side of the paper. And then turn your paper through 180 degrees, and we're actually going to start writing at number 4. And the reason for this is slightly more advanced because when we're talking with people, we often think in a certain way, and then when we're writing, we write in a slightly different order. So that's why when we're talking, when we're facilitating, then I do it in the order that people tend to think. And so we're going to do it in different boxes. And then at the end, it should all work out that the boxes will be in the right order. Okay, so at the top of box 4, write, where am I now? Where am I now?
Location or the question?
The question, just write the question, yep.
Bogdan, you can mention they're just married, so it's fine.
Okay, so when you've written that, I'm going to ask David to demonstrate, to be our model. So, David, what I want you to think about is your experience giving pre-work as a facilitator of online meetings. With that. Where are you now? Where are you now with that topic? And maybe you could explain, say something to me, and then put it on a sticky.
Yes, where am I now? I need to constantly remind them, the participants, and send reminders. Read the document, open the document. Did you get the document, etc. So I have to remind them. Yes.
Okay, so David, put that on a sticky and put that on your board behind you, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, and David, what's another thing you know about where you are now with these problems with pre-work before for online meetings?
You have to keep track of your reminders. The online,
so
you have to keep track.
Keep track. So put that on a sticky.
To remind yourself, to remind people.
Okay, so put that up on the board. And what's another thing you know about where you are now on this?
You can't control everything. People will forget, and there's nothing you can do about it. You have to accept that people won't do the pre-work.
Yeah. Okay, so write that down on a sticky.
And plan for it.
And while David's writing that down, for everybody else, you're noticing that what I'm doing is I'm getting a series of information nodes, if you like. They are little bits of information. And what I'm wanting is to create a sort of network of information. And that's what David is doing there with his stickies. So we're going to need another node of information. So David, what's another thing you know about problems with pre-work before online meetings?
I suppose that you're almost protecting, well, I suppose that you can't have an activity that depends too much on pre-work, or have a plan B if you want. So you have to work at it. Okay, if you don't do it, can you do it very quickly at the beginning? So it can't depend on the pre-work.
Okay, that's great. So write that on a sticky.
Let's say a plan B, for example.
And again, while David's doing that, what I want you to notice is that point 4 actually took a bit longer to come out. And this is quite normal. When you it's quite easy to think of 3 things that you know about something. But by the time you get to number 4, quite often that's the one that takes the longest. Okay. So now I'm going to keep going through this bit of session, so this bit of process, and then I'll take questions in a bit. So David, can you think of another thing, that another bit of information? What else do you know about where you are now with this pre-work for meetings?
Maybe using different channels of information. Some people may not open an email, but they will read a WhatsApp, for example.
Right, great.
So use different channels, or yeah.
So put that on the sticky, and again, notice that David is starting to come up with some ideas on his own just by me asking these iterative questions. Okay, so the last time, what else do you know about where you are now?
Okay, I'm drying up now. What else do I know? Yeah, you could, maybe send snail mail as well, maybe a letter to remind people. So that, the physical reminders, or even do the pre-work for them sometimes. Or integrate the pre-work, plan a few moments at the beginning for the pre-work.
Okay, great. So write that down on a sticky, put that where it needs to be. And while David's doing that, so we've now got 6 ideas. I've sort of pushed him. It's a bit hard work, but I've pushed him. And what we're now going to do is I want David to start connecting up what he's written. And when he connects it up, then he says, oh, well, if I'm going to do that, then that fits that, or that might fit with that. And something might emerge out of it. And that's part of the facilitated writing process, is looking for emergent knowledge that's coming out. So David, could you cluster your stickies where they need to be? And by cluster, what I'm meaning is that maybe David wants to put, some things work together, and then maybe, that one goes over there. So if you like, by clustering, that is a way of making the connections and understanding how things fit together.
I'm sorry, can you just recap all the steps that you've done, starting from the point what you've asked him to do before going to clustering, just to recap the steps?
I'll tell you what, I think what we're doing, we're going to go through it.
Okay.
And as we go through, you will see how it works. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is I'm going to be telling you when it's time to write, when it's time to think. So if you're with the process, that will be great. And then I think at the end, it's actually easier when I'll do a review, a recap, and then you'll get the whole process, if that's okay. I'm saying that is okay. That is my plan. So in this thing, what we have been doing, we've been building this network. We've got the connections. The question was just, what else? Is there anything else about where you are now? So David, when you've got all those things, what's emerging for you? Can you just sort of maybe summarize all of that?
Well, I think it's one thing might be just to block periods where you do the pre-work with them, that we organize an appointment of 1 hour and we do the pre-work together. That way they block the time rather than maybe 6 people independently doing it if possible.
Right. Okay, so that is a summary of where you are now. So what I'd like you to do, David, is write that in box 4 underneath where am I now? And then for everybody else, I'd like you to look at box 4 and can you summarize something? Obviously, you've heard what David's been saying. Maybe you've had some other things as well. So can you summarize in that box 4 just where you are now with regard to pre-work before online meetings? And if you wish, you can add a little picture. I know David's a great one for little drawings, so feel free to add a little drawing while the others are just finishing off. Okay, great. Now, what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to turn your page, sheet of paper, through 180 degrees, and we're now going to be looking at box 2. And at the top of box 2, can you write, where have I been? Where have I? That's in the chat as well. Okay, so David, we're not going to do the process here for this, but could you just sort of explain, speak it out to me, where you have been in regard to pre-work, and then I'm going to ask you to summarize in box 2.
Where have I been? Well, when it went all virtual, I underestimated that people would do the pre-work. I thought everybody would come and do the pre-work and be ready like good soldiers. And so there was that initial panic of, okay, what do I do now? And, you know, suddenly adapting to the situation. So that's, you do that twice and then you plan differently.
Okay. So, and did you say that, the panic and the difficulty of it? Yeah.
Well, yeah, for the first time you think it's okay, it's just once, and then you realize the second time, okay, this in the virtual setting, it's, you know, it's different. So
okay, so different in a virtual setting. Okay, so I'm going to ask David to summarize what he's just said in box 2, and everybody else, please just think about where have you been with regard to pre-work, and maybe it's not something you thought about beforehand, you know, but before you came here, but maybe you know, in the past, you know, maybe a few either before this meeting or maybe before lockdown. Just where have you been? Okay, well done, David. You've got a little drawing there. I'm loving that. Is that all right for me to be spotlighted? Maybe David could be spotlighted.
Oh yeah, sorry,
as well
I
as
could spot
myself.
you again. Sorry. Yeah, up there we go. You're spotlighted.
Is that right? Are you added to spotlight?
Am I spotlighting too?
Yes. I think you've removed the spotlight.
There you are.
Can you spotlight me there, Raina?
I did. Yep, you're on Spotlight now.
I'm on spotlight.
You're on Spotlight now.
But there we are. We're both on spotlight now. There we are. So it is the two of us who are going to be right at the front here. Okay, now I would like you to move to box 3, and in box 3 near the top, everyone please write what has changed is ... What has Okay, and a bit further down than about halfway down that box, can you write what remains similar is? Okay, so in box 3, you've got
Sorry,
what
Richard,
has,
which box are we on now?
box 3.
Box 3. Oh, okay.
Okay, so again, David, can you model this? So
Yeah.
comparing where you are now in box 4 with where you have been in box 2, you know, what's changed?
Well, now I give less tasks or less work.
Right.
And what hasn't changed is they still forget, or they still
Okay.
don't do it. Okay.
Right.
Mm-mm-mm.
Okay, so can you summarize that in box 3, and everybody else, can you summarize in box 3 what, you know, comparing where you are now, box 4, with where you have been, box 2? So what has changed? What remains similar? Okay, and again, I see David doing a little drawing, perhaps to just to make sure that everybody's at the right time. So that's great. Okay, so when you have filled in box 3, I'd like to turn the paper through 180 degrees again, and we're going to box 7. And at the top of box 7, everybody write, where might I be? And about halfway down box 7, write, which means that. Okay, so David, so thinking of our topic, where might you be?
Where might I be? I might stop completely giving pre-work.
Ooh, right, okay.
Consideration.
And which means that?
Which means that I will not worry about the beginning, or I will not worry about people not being prepared.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so, and again, to explain to everybody, that is like what I'm noticing is that David's giving me what might be called a desired outcome, like something he would like to move towards. So that's great, actually, and I think this is helpful with the writing. So I'm now going to ask David to epitomize that. If you could summarize that in box 7, and everybody else, if you could think of where you might be, which means that. And my suggestion is to go for something positive, like you know, what would be a good thing that could help, something you'd like to move towards.
Richard, as a non-native speaker of English, I'm a little bit perplexed what this actually means. Where might I be? Does this refer to like the present moment? No, just...
Yeah, let me just explain that question. Thank you for asking.
So how am I different now, or like? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll just do it on the board here. So you could say this is like where, this is the first thing, where am I now? And then we also had the sort of in the past, where have I been? And then we're thinking about, oh, well, actually, where might I be in the future? So David was saying, for example, at the moment, maybe where is he now is, well, it's trying to do the pre-work is a bit of a problem. So, but then where might I be? So that's looking to the future. Well, actually, I might not give any pre-work, and that would solve it.
Yes, we're guessing about the future, really, aren't we?
Yeah. Okay, does that help in terms of the time? We're just trying to sort of split time effectively.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking, if you really intentionally mean to invite future, why don't you ask that more directly? Because otherwise I would think, where might I be? It's kind of where am I be right now in my thinking, indeed ahead, but it's still, how am I a little bit changed through this experience? Or yeah.
Okay,
So,
yeah, no, that's good.
Okay, thank you. Small distinction, but yeah, it's helpful. Good.
Great. Okay, so we've got where we are. David, have you done a picture for where you might your future, David?
I can. Yes. So I'm looking into my telescope. Yes, here we go. Yes, I'm looking into my telescope into the future.
Ah, I see where you might be. And then it says, I might stop. Yeah.
Giving pre-work.
Giving pre-work. Okay, great. So now we're going to move to box 5. And in box 5, near the top, write what might changes, ...
What might change is.
Yeah. And below, about halfway down, write what might be similar is.
This is in which box? Box number?
This is in box number 5.
Thank you, David.
Again, so just to explain a little bit the theory here, what we're trying to do is compare the difference between these different times. So we've already had a compare with where people were, where they have been, and where they are now. Now we're trying to compare where you might be compared to where you are now. So David, let me ask you, comparing where you might be in box 7 with where you are now in box 4, what might change?
Well, if I'm stressed less, or if I'm thinking less about did they do the pre-work, well, I will be more, serene at the beginning. So I'm not wondering, is this going to get off to a good start? And also, and this happened as well in the past, is that they arrive more, serene or ready to go, because they're not worrying about, like, I didn't do my homework. So they're passing the door and they're, okay, I'm comfortable arriving in this session, and I'm not arriving excusing the fact that I didn't do my preparation or pre-work. What might be similar is I will still stress. I'll stress anyway. So, yeah.
Okay, great. So summarize that in box 5, and everybody else, please summarize what might change and what might be similar. Okay, so we're doing well. We're filling up the boxes. Now we're going to do box 6. So when you're ready, in box 6, near the top, could everyone write what could help is? Oops. And about halfway down right, what could get in the way is. Okay, so the theory here, if we go back to our diagram, is that between where we are now and the desired outcome, there could be some things that get in the way, I suppose, some sort of obstacles, but there could also be some things that are sort of a helping. I don't know, these are supposed to be hooks, or I don't know, something that helps anyway, as people move from where we are now to where we might be. So that's the point of this question. So David, just briefly, thinking of how the where you are now in box 4 could become the where you might be in box 7, what could help?
Well, what could help, what I've written is that everybody does their pre-work to begin with. That could help, yeah, that I wouldn't have to, that I could have a not cooperative, but people with time to do pre-work, because people are busy, we understand that. But so that could help, having a group that does and is willing to do the pre-work.
Okay, and what could get in the way?
Well, I kind of what could get in the way is, and I'm looking at it a little bit differently, is that I was mentioning about not giving pre-work and doing something at the beginning of the session. But you might have a situation where pre-work is necessary and unavoidable, because it's a particular complex situation, depending on the context. So, they might need to read a report. They might need to go in and look at something and open something, and it's unavoidable. Yeah.
Okay, so that would be something unavoidable. That would be something that could get in the way. Yeah. Okay, so if you could summarize that in box 6, and everybody else, if you could write, what could help, what could get in the way, and this is thinking of the where you are, of how the way you are now in box 4 could become the way you might be in box 7. So completing those 2 sentences you've written. Okay, and as you finish off that, we're going to move to box 8. So turn the paper through 180 degrees. And at the top of box 8, write, what I'm willing to have happen is. Now, I've written in the chat, it's not the easiest of questions. I quite understand that. And many of you may recognize that the type of questions I'm using are related to clean language. So David Grove, a great sort of facilitator of in all sorts of ways. But he tried different ways of asking questions, and this is sort of based on the way that David Grove might have asked it, except I'm not sure he did particularly. But the idea is that what I'm wanting is to get at is, well, what could happen? And maybe it's something you want to do, or maybe it's just something, well, actually that could happen. So it's sort of both senses, which is captured, I think, in what I'm willing to have happen. But that's what I'm getting at there. So David, again, if you could just speak it out very briefly, what are you willing to have happen as you think about all this?
Well, I suppose that theoretically, I'm willing to accept that it could go wrong.
Right, okay.
Yeah. That if you don't do the pre-work, or, if you don't do the pre-work, or whatever it could, or I will have to, well, go wrong is maybe, you know, strong, but maybe I will have to move the session to the following week or something like that, and insist that they do it, rather than, you know, trying to insist and trying to make it work when it's not going to work because the pre-work should have been done.
Okay. And is there anything else that you're willing to have happen?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Okay, so if you can summarize what you've just said in box 8, and everybody else, if you could summarize, you know, just thinking of all this, moving to from where you are now to where you might be, what are you willing to have happen? Maybe you could ask, is there anything else that you're willing to have happen? Yeah, and we're moving now towards finishing off this part of the process. So when all that you've written, what could be a title for all that? So at the top of box 1, write sort of a title. You could do it quite large. And when you've written a title, can you add anything else to that title? Maybe a subtitle.
Where do we have to put this title? Which row?
At the top of box 1. So this is like the title for the whole of what we've been talking of, for everything that you've written.
We call it the perils of facilitation.
Okay. And is there anything else you can add to box 1, and maybe a drawing? I know David might want that. I'm hoping David's going to do that. Stick figures are fine. Something that sort of sums up this whole thing that we've put on this sheet of paper. Okay, and when you've done that, we come to the crucial bit of folding, another bit of folding. So I'm going to rub this out, erase this. We can focus on this bit. Okay, so get your piece of paper and fold. First thing is to fold in half this way this time. So it'll be a different type of fold. So it's still going to end up with 8 panels, but the folds have got to be in a different way. So fold it in half like that. So you can see 8, 1, and then 6 and 7 at the bottom. Okay. And then 8 and 7, they have to be folded in that to the middle. Okay. And then the other side, which is 3 down there, and 4, fold that in as well. So then
we have this.
I am lost. I
Okay,
am
we can
lost.
do.
So it should, what we're aiming for is something like this. So basically you've got a, just hold it around like this. So you've got a center fold now that is coming out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Okay, and then when we're done that, if you have scissors, this is the moment for the scissors, but otherwise careful tearing, and cut underneath box 1 to the middle fold. That. just to the middle fold. So it should look like that. Okay, and then fold number 1, side 1 to the right, and the lower one to the left, like that. So you should have a 4. And then fold the bottom half under, so you can just see 1 and 8. And then fold number 8 behind number 1. And when you've done that, it should be in number order. Seeing a few smiles. And when you read through it, you will find that it actually works as in the pattern we had here, which is a more normal writing pattern, where you begin with the past, and then you move to the present, and you move to the future, and then you'll get to the what you're willing to have happen. So that is a writing structure, a writing format, but we got to it through facilitating a sort of a thinking process. That's great. So David, do you want to show yours? I don't know, is that right to ask you to put that in a bit more?
Yeah, that's good. Mine's pre-work and beyond.
Okay.
This is the title I gave it. So,
excellent.
And we're into, I can't remember now. Where have I been? I was in a panic. What has changed? I'm trying to read it on my screen. Hang on. Maybe can I get myself so I can actually get a kind of a mirror thing? I don't know. Can I do this? Hang on.
I think we want to look at the pictures, David. Have you got some pictures?
Okay. I've got some, I don't know if I've done everything in pictures. I can't remember.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
And then the next page. And the last page doesn't have a picture. I'm sorry, but I did a little picture on the front. I don't know if you saw it.
With a person walking up the steps.
Up the stairs, yes, with the group behind them. So, yeah,
right.
Leadership style. So that's it. Yeah, maybe somebody else would like to show us their book. You know.
Yeah. Well, so because should I just make a quick little comment there, which is the pictures are actually quite important. You know, it's great to see them. Not everybody's into pictures, but what is good about a picture is it's like a metaphor. So a picture is not the thing itself, it's as if. And I've mentioned David Grove before, clean language, emergent knowledge. The sort of David Grove is very into metaphor and saying, well, actually you can grasp all sorts of things with metaphor. It's very sort of right brain. So that's one of the reasons why it's really nice to have a little bit of picture, but also thinking of metaphor, and as if the fact that we've changed what was maybe quite a static thing, like your thoughts are all sort of aggregated, they're all put together on the sheet of paper. Actually, it's possible to turn them into something that flows and almost is like a little story. And so that's really good as well. And in itself it's a bit metaphorical, but it's a different way to how we might often think about things. Okay, so I do want to say a bit more about that, but I also want to see what maybe one zine, because then I'm going to suggest we go into breakout rooms. I hope that's not too brave. And then if anyone wants to either share their zine, but you don't have to. And one of the glorious things about this is you don't have to show anybody what you've done. It's your own stuff. I have no idea what you've written or haven't written. But when we go to breakout rooms, if you wish to share something from the zine, you may, or you may just want to make a comment about the process, or just find out who else is in the room, which is what I love to do when I go into these breakout rooms. It's a great sort of community thing as well, so that's really good. So breakout rooms coming up. Did one person? I don't know. Did David? Were you suggesting someone shared a zine?
No, if they want to, if somebody wants to share one, maybe. I don't know, just an idea. Maybe in the breakout rooms you prefer.
I think we should go to a breakout room.
Yeah, let's go to the breakout rooms.
Yeah, we've seen yours, and there we are. Okay, so Raina, is that okay? So I think we should have people. Because you'll have 10 minutes. Is that okay? 10 minutes, and then that gives us a bit of time to have a chat again afterwards. So 10 minutes, if that's okay, Raina.
Yep. Okay.
Good. How are you, Richard? How are you feeling?
Well, thank you, David, for doing it. As
I hope I was okay.
I'm hoping we had enough. I hope people had enough time to sort of write in their own bits. That was the unknown bit of it, I think.
Yeah, the difficult thing here will be just not everybody's native.
Sorry.
No, I mean, I was just going back and forth. I don't know what happened, but that's fine.
Oh, we missed you.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We're having such a great conversation, but yeah,
Well, yes, yeah.
I'm sure you were. I'm sure you did great as well. So.
Well, we did, but it would be next time.
Great.
There was more opportunities.
Okay, well, great to see everyone back. And I was having a great conversation in the breakout rooms, and it prompted me. I did want to say some things, but also I was asked, well, what else could happen? So I'm just going to put a couple of links in, if I may, into the chat. Oh, those are the wrong ones. Okay, let me just copy them. Let me copy them again. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'll do them one by one. I think that will be easiest. Right, Control C. Let's just put this into here. The first, that's it. That is my LinkedIn page for anyone who's interested in that. And what I'm the next link is a particular event that I am doing next week, and I'm going to be doing more facilitated writing, and we'll be using zines and other processes as well.
Okay, you're back, Richard.
I'm back. The links are obviously too much for it. Right. Okay. Hopefully that has gone. So it's at a relatively early stage facilitated writing, because I've been a writer for 25 years. I've been a writing coach for a long time. But what has changed, particularly since lockdown, has been this idea, actually, what about having a whole lot of people all writing at the same time? And so you saw today that everyone hopefully came up with a zine, and everyone could have written something a bit different. But the fact that this process, you can have a facilitator who leads people through a writing process, everybody does the same thing. And I'm like, well, how big can it go? I'm wanting to get to 100 people, 200, whatever. So I'm keen for, to have more experiments, to have more people coming along. So if you'd like to come along next week, it is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. You can read more about it there. I was also asked about the, what stages, and so on. So let me just put this under here. I put 2 videos in there. So these are the sheets on how to fold the paper. It's a bit difficult to explain it by speaking. So if you watch my little videos, you will see how to fold a sheet of paper, and then you can create zines in that way. So I hope that will be useful as well. And if you want more particular things to say, the zines, which I've got here, they are just sort of one thing. So we've got the zine there. But I have lots of processes. I was going to write a little network here. So this is there we go. It's a network to say that that's what happens. Oh,
sorry to interrupt. Is the list of the number of orders there in the videos? Can they find the number of orders?
The orders, yeah. So that is, it is not in the video. No. So the video shows you how to fold it, but it doesn't have the actual sort of question things on it.
Okay. Can you shortly please repeat those orders, if possible?
Yeah, okay. So what I suggest you do is, if you can, on your zines that you've got there, I'll just tell you which one you did first, because you've got the questions and everything already. So, so you start with where have I been, which is box 2. So if you want to put a little 1 or something, I don't know, it's going to be confusing, some other way of noting it. So we start with box 2, then we go to box, sorry, I've got it, I'm looking at my script here. I was wrong. We start with box 4, don't we? Because it's where am I now? So start with box 4,
I can note it in the chat if you want.
Right, okay, I will say it, David, you can note it.
Yeah, so we start with box 4. We start with box 4.
Then it's box 2.
I'm going to do letters first and then the page. So A is 4. We can do it that way, okay? B,
is 2.
B is 2.
C is 3.
D is 3, okay.
D is 7.
D equals 7, okay.
E is 5. F is 6. G is 7.
Okay.
H is 8. And then I is 1.
And I is 1, okay. Do I put the questions alongside them or not? Oh, does it matter? No, I can just send that, can't I?
You send that because it's otherwise it's quite a.
Yeah, 7's in there twice.
Oh.
I think it's 1, isn't it? I is 1.
I is we have there's Don is right. D is 7. Maybe it's me. D is 7 and G is 7. Did I make an error there?
No, I think it's correct. I think there's only 1 7.
But
oh no, you're right. D is 7 and G is 7. Sorry, my apologies. Yeah, okay, that was wrong. So
give it to me again, Richard. A is 4.
So it goes 4, 2, 3. Sorry. We've got 9 boxes. That's the problem. Yeah, so take out G equals 7.
Okay. So A is 4, B is 2, C is 3, D is 7, E is 5, F is 6, H is 8, and I is 1, right?
Great. So then 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, we've got 8 boxes there. That's right, isn't it? Now, can I actually? This is a useful point that what the issue is actually is quite easy to get confused. And this is why having a facilitator to take people through is actually pretty useful. And I was mentioning to Tina in our breakout room. I mean, I'm a professional writer, but I have a facilitator who facilitates me through writing. And we don't do zines all the time. That's just one of them. And there are lots of templates that I use for zines. This is just one of them, which I call Where Am I Now? But I have other templates as well. And just, I find it really useful to sort of say, get stuff out. It's like surfacing what's in my mind and my body. And then it's like getting it out in a way that will make sense to other people through this. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I've given you some links. I suppose there is also www.facilitatedwriting.com. Let me just put that in there. More of an experimental site. So, you know, that just gives a bit more background really on me and this sort of this development, this initiative. Okay, so with that, I think, David, did you want to say a little something? Let me see, we've got, I'm just sort of aware of the time. It looks like we've got about 14 minutes. Did you want to say anything at this point, David?
I don't know if anybody, before I close, if anybody wants to add anything or has any questions to ask, don't hesitate. You can jump in there. Now is the time.
Yeah, I just have one question, David.
Yes.
Richard,
go ahead, Umar.
Richard, thank you very much for a great session. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I was just wondering if there are other topics you would like to explore. Can we still use the same template? This, I believe, is more in terms of, let's say, leadership, 5 whys, stuff like that.
That's a great question, Umar. So, and just yesterday, I was running this precise process with a chief executive, and he had a sort of an issue, and it was difficult for him to talk to other people, to be honest. You know, sometimes people are in that situation. So I said to him, well, what is your problem? What is your issue that you'd like to explore? And he told me in broad terms, and then he went through it, and I didn't really understand. I mean, I didn't understand what he was talking about. I didn't need to know all the details. So what I think that demonstrates is it is very possible for it to work in a lot of different scenarios. And I think part of the reason for that is what I was drawing now, that the way, sort of the inner structure of it, sort of where are you now, where have you been in the past, where might you be, and in order to get there, what could happen. So yeah, I mean, it's a great way of thinking about things, I think. And again, I'd like to acknowledge David Grove, Matthew Hudson, other people who have sort of worked on good structures. And I hope what I'm adding is like actually how do you write about it? How do you get it out? Not just talking about it, but how do you write it so you've got something that you can keep and that the chief executive can keep, everyone who's coming to your meeting can keep. And when you start again, people are like, right, I know where I am. I've got it here. I've like got an artifact from what was discussed.
I can add in there that the first time I saw this was one of the people you worked with, Richard, who actually posted on LinkedIn. And it was about a minute or a minute and a half long. And then it was one of the rare videos on LinkedIn that I actually watched intently, you know, because as she was turning this page, I could really feel this. It was a lady, I can't remember her name, but I could really feel we were walking through her story, and it was only, you know, it's just 8 pages, but you're looking forward to seeing what the last page is, you know. So it's actually quite engaging, you know. So I suppose you could also use it by, you know, it depends on the exercise and the topic, but exchanging stories as well, you know, between participants if it's, you know, it's not too sensitive a story. But I just, you know, this lady shared her story and it was quite engaging. Pages turning, you know.
Yeah, we have Anastasia.
Thank you, Celeste. Richard, thank you very much for today's session. Quick question. In our breakout room, we've cracked your method and we came to know that it's called clean language questions. Is that correct?
Clean language and emergent knowledge, yeah.
Right. So my question is, would you please tell me a part of the example that you just gave with the chief executive, or this methodology, what type of challenges, corporate challenges it can apply for? Or maybe you had some experience, a part of just one-on-one session on how I can, what I can tackle with that, with which corporate challenges out there in the world.
Yeah, so again, a great question. Let me be very specific and let me start where we are now, which is thinking about how do you get, what is the answer to problems with getting people to do pre-work for online meetings. And it seems to me that is a real problem that, you know, probably we share. So that is one problem that this approach can do, because it's getting everyone to think about their own thing and to have their own ideas about it. So if we then say where might would be, if we move forward, then what I would say is it could apply to a huge range of problems, but particularly where you want different people to come to their own conclusions or to be able to think about their own thing. It might be easier to say that it might not work in certain other areas. So I used to, one of my copywriting jobs was for a company in Singapore, and they didn't, just the way it was, they didn't want people to think particularly, like it wasn't a case of, right, what does everybody think about this, come up with your own ideas. It was much more, this is the company view, you must go and do what we tell you. We are giving you a script, go out and do it. And so in that case, probably clean language and this might not be appropriate. So I would, you know, I wouldn't take on that sort of job, but I would take on jobs where I'm wanting people to get stuff out, their stuff out, as opposed to sort of corporate stuff like that. So I hope that gives enough help.
Thank you. Dawn has a question in the chat. She've dropped the question for you in the chat as well. Dawn, can you read aloud if you're okay with that?
Yeah, I just said in our breakout rooms, we talked about if we were going to do this with participants in a session, that we'd probably allow about 45 minutes. And we were wondering if we were on, looking at that correctly for the amount of time it might take. Yeah, I think that would be great. I mean, the sessions that I run, and which I'm going to run next week, they are about an hour. And so the actual writing bit can normally be done 40, 45 minutes. I think you're absolutely right there. What I would add in is normally some sort of getting people in the right state to write. And particularly if people are not used to writing very much, or they might be a bit resistant, I would spend a little bit longer with some sort of activity. And again, I've got a whole raft of activities to help with facilitated writing. So if people understand what they're doing, 40 minutes would be great. If people don't, you probably need a warm-up beforehand.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
suppose one of the important things to consider here in this particular session is, we're working with English as a second language for probably most of the people. So, if you're going into, if it was a 100%, French, German, you could maybe go a little bit deeper again, with the questions or the answers. That's a consideration. Anybody else have anything to add before we wind up? Dawn.
Here I go, asking my questions.
Good.
So in our breakout room, we also talked about the question about, where am I now versus where have I been? And like for me, I didn't go back far enough of where have I been. And I think, have you ever given them more of a timeline? Like, where were you a year ago, or where were you 6 months ago, or 2 years ago, or pre-pandemic, just something, because to me, I was answering those two questions very similar without some kind of perspective. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. So if I'm doing this with a group, I would try and get a sense of where the group is and how much information we need to do. And what you noticed was with where are you now, I did a network, a nice emergent knowledge network, because that's quite important. If it was also important to do something with where have you been, like I could spend quite a lot more time on that, and I could have done a network with the 6 nodes. I could have used another process. For example, I might say, what's one place where you've been on this? What's another place that you've been on this? What's another place you've been on this? And I could do that 6 times. And then I could say, with all those places where you've been, what draws your attention now? And that would be a way for people to think it through and to be more specific. And similarly, moving forward, where might you be? And you'll notice that I was a little bit unclean as in the script today, because I said maybe you're thinking of something positive, like David was, and that makes it easier if you've got a positive desired outcome. But sometimes people don't, and I could be doing this exercise with people who really, what might happen is a really horrible, terrible thing, and the process will still work for them. Because it'd still be like, well, actually, what helps towards that? What might get in the way of that? And it's just you want things to get in the way of that. So it's helping towards that. So I suppose there's quite a lot of complexity and richness that there could be, particularly if you're working with a client, and you get a sense of where they are and how much you need to work on getting things to emerge.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Anybody else? Well, if there's no more questions, Celeste, do you want to say anything as regional director before we wind up?
Just to thank you, Richard. I personally really appreciate the session, and I'm already thinking about how to use it, but also to check the questions, because I need to use it in Portuguese, and of course the questions should be well done
if I may say this way. But I really enjoyed it a lot, and I have lots of ideas about it. And as RD, so I just want to thank for your time, Richard, for the opportunity to share with our members and non-members your knowledge, and I hope to see you all again. And Richard, you are welcome to participate in our other sessions as a participant, if you wish.
Yes, and
thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. And yes, so thank you, Richard. I have put all of Richard's links one more time in the chat. We'll be posting the recording on the internet, and I think we can put those videos in there as well, which makes sense. And that's it. Okay, well, thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
For your participation.
It's been great to be with you all.
And let's go and do our pre-work now.
Yeah.